You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, and welcome to Mission Matters Live, a program focused on promoting a spirit of mission among the people of God in the Archdiocese of Chicago. My name is Megan Mio. I'm Director of the Global Mission Office. Our engineers this morning are Mike and Brian. You are listening to WNDZ 750 AM, and this month we broadcast on the third Thursday of the month from 8:30 to 9 a.m. This month I have with me Deacon Don Grossnickle and Deacon Jerry Brennen. Both Deacon missionaries are from Our Lady of the Wayside Parish in Arlington Heights. And I've invited them here to talk with us about MAAPF, the MAP Foundation, which stands for Microfinance Alliance Africa Projects Foundation. This U.S.-based charity strives to lower maternal and infant mortality rates in Uganda and to connect women and children to life-saving health care, education, and opportunities to thrive. MAP does this in a very unique and sustainable way using microfinance, which leads to overall community development. Deacon Don is the founder and president, while Deacon Jerry is a member of the board. So welcome, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Megan. Good morning, Chicago.
Thanks, Megan.
Good morning, Chicago. Thank you. Wonderful to have you both here with us. I mentioned at the top of the show that this organization, Microfinance Alliance Africa Projects Foundation, MAP, seeks to improve the health and health care for women and children in Uganda. So let's hear about how does MAAPF do this, and what is the approach? I mentioned microfinance, but maybe you can tell us some more. Don?
Thank you, Megan. Yes, for our listeners, we want you to know that in Uganda, East Africa, life is challenging for all the people, particularly challenging for mothers and babies. Right now, we are assisting or kind of rescuing financially Catholic clinics for the most part. And we're very, very proud to say that at the moment we are in 11 clinics, mostly associated with parishes. And what this means is that because of our work, we have about 7,000 mothers and babies that would receive medical care, urgent medical care, because of the donors that help us with our microfinancing. So we'll be telling you throughout the program today basically how this works, but essentially we're called by bishops and priests and clinical workers to come to a community and set up a business, and from that the profits are then given over to mothers and babies so that they can pay their medical bills, because otherwise they would be unable to pay. And if you're unable to pay, sometimes the doors of the clinics are closed to you, and you have to go on your way. So we're very happy we've got some good things going.
Yeah, I think that's where the microfinance comes in, right? You said you start up businesses where their profits go toward the clinic to pay for the medicines, to pay for the care, ultimately, that people wouldn't be able to pay for themselves, right?
Yes, that's correct. And I think the unique part of our model is that rather than just giving mothers and babies financial one-time gifts, we set up this microfinance business. And Jerry's going to tell you a little bit about how that works. But basically through chickens or pigs or through a crop, the local parish begins a business. The profits come in, and then they're basically able to allocate the funds to take care of the mothers and babies.
Awesome. Okay, Deacon Jerry, tell us some more.
Sure. So just using one of the examples Don gave, they choose what agribusiness typically that they would think makes sense in that area. It might be a dairy herd, it might be chickens, it might be a piggery, but let's say it's chickens.
Mm-hmm.
So they would, with the $5,000 grant we give them, the forgivable loan, they would upgrade some shed so that it would be an appropriate chicken coop, and then they would buy several hundred chickens. They would allocate money for veterinary medicines for the chickens, and they would buy feed for the chickens. Then when either eggs are sold or chickens as broilers are sold, as Don was saying, a significant portion of that profit would go to buy medicines, often anti-malaria medicines for mothers and infants.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like from our conversations, I know anti-malaria is big. It saves lives. It can really change the life of a whole family. To have that's something very simple in some ways and very preventable, that kind of medicine or that kind of preventative care. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And
yes, Don, the course of treatment. Don?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think what we want the viewers and the listeners to know about here is that we have a model that establishes a relationship between us in Chicago here as volunteers. We have a 10-member board that develops a connection through a pastor or a bishop in Uganda. Mm-hmm. And our relationship then is to support them. Each of the parishes basically have a kind of clinic. Some of them are large, some of them are small. And the healthcare workers there very often are religious. And they require to be paid. The medicine has to be paid. And our goal here in the United States is to gather some funds to support the work that goes on in those clinics, because those healthcare workers have a terrible job, which means that they have to send some people away. Yeah. About 70% of the people who come to the clinic requiring urgent care for malaria or other problems cannot pay anything. Okay, and this forces a very, very big problem, for the parish clinic. So without the support, they may be forced to turn them away. And with our help, the 30%, by the way, are paying people. And that's the basic bedrock of running a clinic. But as I mentioned, 70% can't. So that's a big problem. How are you going to give them medicine? How are you going to give them care? And that's where we come in.
Yeah. And I know that you talked about that relationship. It's really important because people who can't pay, or they know they can't pay, wait until it's an absolute emergency, right? If they know that clinic will be able to help them, regardless of their ability to pay or how much they can pay, then they might be more likely to go when it's something small and it's not something life-threatening. So certainly, yeah, I can see how this is really about relationship building between the parish, the religious community there, as well as the clinic and all those patients, those potential patients. So then, can you give us an example of how this has worked out well? Tell us about one particular case and who the beneficiaries were in that case. Jerry?
So you want me to talk about that?
Yeah,
sure.
Please.
So the first clinic we helped was, I think, St. Jude's, right, Don? And they established, Don mentioned a couple times that 70% of the patients can't pay, but St. Jude's had been trying to take care of their indigent patients as well. And consequently, the clinic was almost bankrupt when we first helped them to set up a dairy herd, almost bankrupt. And they were only able from a regulatory standpoint in Uganda to deal with very, very, very basic, simple medical procedures. Over the course of the years since we first helped them, they have become financially sound where the last time they needed to do an expansion in the clinic, they were able to actually get a commercial loan for the expansion. We had given them subsequent grants because they'd been so successful anyway. They are now a class 4 clinic from a regulatory standpoint, and they can actually perform some surgical procedures at that facility rather than just dispense some prescription drugs. So they're an outstanding example. They're able to help all of the people that come to them, whether they're indigent or not. And malaria in a country like Uganda is actually one of the leading causes of infant mortality because they don't always get the medicines. It is a curable disease. I think a course of medication for a particular individual would typically be under $30. So it's really sad to think that $30 worth of medicine could cure somebody, and yet they end up dying because they can't afford that medicine and no one else is there to give it to them.
Right. I mean, in this case, this particular clinic in St. Jude, it sounds like then they were also able to provide a much larger, a wide variety of care as well, because of their kind of expansion, because of their success, their ability ultimately to be sustainable with the ongoing business supporting their offerings, and then, as you say, expand even further through grants and other forms of support. Actually, I was thinking while you were speaking about having to turn people away, we got just a teeny tiny glimpse of that during the COVID pandemic here in the U.S. Amazing to think that the U.S. medical system could be overwhelmed, but it was for a period of time, and that there were medical professionals who had to make a decision. Who can I treat today, right? And here in Uganda, this is happening all the time in these types of clinics, right? That horrible decision having to be made. Who can I save today? And so, and in many cases, the types of issues that people are facing are something that is treatable, if only we have the funds to be able to provide that medicine and that care. Well, I think it is about time for our break. So we'll be back in just a moment to continue our discussion about microfinance and community development in Uganda. But stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sunday, September 18, Catholic Charities is hosting a reunion for anyone who was involved in St. Vincent's Orphanage, the life-affirming agency that helped establish thousands of families at 721 North LaSalle Street in Chicago over 91 years. Tours of the building begin at 10 o'clock in the morning. Mass will be celebrated at noon with a reception to follow. Adoptees, adoptive parents, staff members, volunteers, and friends of St. Vincent's are all welcome to attend. These annual reunions offer adopted persons a chance to see where their lives began, where they were baptized, and to meet some of the people who cared for them. Everyone found love and support when they came to St. Vincent's. This event is free, but registration is required. Call 312-655-7093. That's 312-655-7093.
This is year 44 for me teaching. When I started here, there were teachers here that had taught me when I was a student. Now I'm the old person. Right now, I teach junior high math. I love when kids find what I'm teaching to be fun and they get it. I see that light bulb go off and it's a thrill. People are always amazed. What? You're here for 44 years? It's hard for me to believe, frankly. I love what I do. Every summer I think, oh, I miss the classroom. Even on the weekends, I think I can't wait to get back on Monday and teach those quadratic equations.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at archchicago.org/schooljobs.
Catholic Charities St. Martin de Porres Society offers meaningful conversation with compelling speakers to discuss the needs of our region, nation, and world, and the power of faith in meeting those needs. On Wednesday, September 28th at 6:30 p.m., Sally Blount and Father James Martin will participate in a special online event, Putting Faith into Action, Becoming Builders of a Better World. To register for this free event, visit athenaeumcenter.org/events. That's ATHENAEUM center.org. You can also email us at partners@catholiccharities.net for more information. Join us as we learn more about the charitable works of the Church and inspire each other to live our faith in new ways.
Welcome back to Mission Matters Live. I am Megan Mio, Director of the Global Mission Office, and I'm here with Deacon Don Grossnickle and Deacon Jerry Brennen of Our Lady of the Wayside Parish in Arlington Heights. They are representatives of Microfinance Alliance Africa Projects Foundation, a U.S.-based charity that seeks to improve the health and healthcare of women and children in Uganda. Before the break, we were learning more about how the MAP Foundation engages local faith communities, parishes, religious congregations to take up micro businesses that will fund clinics that provide health care to vulnerable and poor women and children and the whole community. But I want to mention now, here at the halfway point, that actually Deacon Don Grossnickle joined us before on Mission Matters Live. It was actually in March 2020, right before everything changed with the pandemic. He was a guest on our show and shared with another colleague, and he shared some of the early work of the MAP Foundation. But a lot has developed since that time. That's 2.5 years ago now. So you've been hard at work in protecting and working with the communities in Uganda. So I'd like to ask Deacon Don now, if you can share with us what kinds of developments, what's been taking place in these last 2 years?
I would have to say growth and progress. And Deacon Jerry and I are just one of 10 board members, volunteers. So there's lots of people working. We started basically with myself, and then we had 3 board members, and now we have 10 because it takes a lot to help people understand what we're doing and ask them to join us. Mm-hmm. So in 2013, I went to Uganda, East Africa for the first time. It's a big country, 45 million people, mostly rural, and the situation is very different. People don't have insurance. The government tries its best to try support for the people, but they can't. Yeah. And the Catholic population is about 60% or so. Many of the parishes have areas that they draw from 20 or 30 miles. Most everybody walks in Uganda, or if they're very, very lucky, they can sit on the back of a motor scooter. You are going to get to a clinic, you have to walk or take a boda. It's called a motor scooter. So yes, we've been increasing from one clinic, as Deacon Jerry mentioned, in 2013, St. Jude. We now are moving toward 11. In 2023, we hope to have our total of 18 clinics. These are relationships with pastors and communities. The microfinancing experience is growing. We went through the pandemic. The people of Uganda went through lockdowns, terrible lockdowns, because if you are going to eat in Uganda, you have to dig. You have to dig and grow. And if you can dig and grow and you have nobody to sell it to, it was a terrible crisis. So we are basically rescuing clinics that are rescuing mothers and children that basically can't afford to pay. So our influence and acceptance in Uganda is growing. We can tell you a little bit more, but I think that's. I just came back in April. It's just seems like yesterday for my fourth time going to Uganda to visit our clinics that we have in operation, and also to visit a long list of those that want us to come.
Yeah.
And as Deacon Jerry mentioned, all it would take would be $5,000 to organize a microfinance business, and that's the way it works. Yeah. If we, through donations of generous people, can come up with $5,000, we will then start a microfinance business. I'm very happy to mention, by the way, the deacons of the Archdiocese donated $2,500 just last week to support us, and that's half a clinic.
Yeah.
So with just $2,500 more, can you imagine? Deacon Jerry will probably tell you we can make about $500 a week, ideally, and that's a $2 visit that will take care of the just getting in the medicine. But that's the basic picture. So we're growing and progressing.
Yeah, just $5,000 touches a lot of lives. It can change a lot of lives, both at the parish and then at the clinics as well. Yeah, Jerry, can you tell us some more?
Yeah. So. In economics, they have a term that's called the velocity of money. And one of the things that I find fascinating about our approach to microfinance is there's a velocity to love and a velocity to charitable giving. So when we put the $5,000 in the clinic, we actually have people on the ground in Uganda that go and evaluate whether they're capable of doing the investments and so forth that they're projecting. We have the board evaluate, and we have one of the benefits of having 10 different people on the board is we have 10 different goods, from people that have backgrounds as actuaries or business people to people that are good at marketing or education. So anyway, we evaluate these programs from a variety of areas, and we end up making recommendations as to whether we can afford to, and whether they can actually accomplish what they plan to with the amount of money we'll put in the $5,000. But it's like the old cliche. It's one thing to give a person a fish, and it's another thing to teach them to fish. And what we're really doing with these projects is mentoring people in how to develop a successful business. So that not only helps the mothers and the infants that are suffering, it helps the whole community to have a successful business in the community. They can hire people and develop other skills in the community.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is a gift that keeps on giving for sure. The experience and as you say, offering of training. People are coming together. They're seeing how a community can really serve one another in both the religious context and then in the healthcare. That's very impressive.
Correct.
Yeah, and Don mentioned your goals for this year and next year. It sounds like the key here is the funding, right? That gives you the door, opens the door for you then to be able to respond to all those requests. I'm sure there are a lot of different regions that are saying, "Can you work with us? Can you work with us?" So, so tell us a little bit more about how the funding works, and then how our listeners too can find out more and get involved. Jerry or
So
Don?
the funding works. We're a 501c3, which means we're an organization that's recognized by the Internal Revenue Service as tax exempt. So donations are tax deductible.
Okay.
And one way to donate would be to go to www.maapf. The F is for foundation, and the rest of the title is maapffoundation.org. And there's a button on one of the pages you can click and make a donation that way.
Mm-hmm.
But for instance, on September 29th, we're having a gather at a friend's house in Arlington Heights, and people can come to hear our story and meet with us. Don does an amazing job on Facebook and other social media places. We recently got recognition from a nationally known deacon who has a blog with a lot of followers, and we received tens of thousands of dollars from one individual, I believe, right, Don, as a through
Right,
that.
sure.
So we try to be active.
Yeah. Don, can you tell us any more?
Well, I would say that every little bit helps. We've been growing. The Lord has been very generous. The people have been very generous. Every small donation, we think the donation means so much to us because it's a prayer. It's a prayer supporting what we're doing. And what we're doing is one person at a time. It seems big, and we're getting bigger, but the satisfaction that the Catholic Christian community in Chicago can really feel is to be a part of what we're doing. At the moment, I'm the only one who goes to Africa. I'm trying very hard to get more people to come with me to actually see. But our website portrays, as best we can, what it's like. I want to tell you just ever so briefly about Alice. Alice came to the Nyenga Clinic, St. Francis Clinic, around the Kampala, the capital city. She was pregnant. She was turned away from another clinic, which happens all the time for people who have no money.
Right.
She was dying of complicated malaria, and the baby inside of her was also dying. And the Nyenga Clinic accepted her. And MAAPF funds paid for surgery for her because she needed a C-section.
Yeah.
Not only that, but she needed 2 months of convalescence and further surgeries, and Alice and her baby would have died. Right. And we have, that story to inspire many.
Thank
when
you.
I was in Uganda just this last time, as Deacon Jerry mentioned, we fully equipped the St. Jude Surgical Center with donations, $22,000, set up this, and I watched 2 surgeries, one which is a C-section, and the other was an ovarian tumor that was removed. I was there in the surgical center.
Wow.
And so by the grace of God, I'm there. MAAPF is there. You are all there. The mission office is here. And I wish that we can all feel, that we're called by God to have a mission.
Yeah.
For me, it's a second calling. 34 years as a deacon. I was called to be a deacon, but now I'm a missionary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Deacon Don,
and everyone
thank
who
you.
donates is a missionary.
That's right. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry to say we're out of time for our radio program, but if you go online, go to youtube.com/CatholicChicago and look for our extended interview. There's so much more to talk about, especially with MAAP Foundation. Go to their website, maapfoundation.org, to learn more and consider giving, or go on and listen to our extended interview. Thank you for joining us, Deacon Don and Deacon Jerry. it's great. It's a great example of our network, our connections, our prayer and support for our brothers and sisters in Uganda and around the world. Thank you very much for listening. And remember, always be on mission.
Catholic Charities' Refugee Resettlement Program has been especially busy this year, assisting individuals and families who have fled dangerous situations in their homeland, including Afghanistan and the Ukraine. The Refugee Resettlement Team helps with everything they need to start to rebuild their lives in a new country, including housing, employment, clothing, food, English classes, and referrals for legal and immigration services. The refugees are tremendously grateful for the compassion and practical help they're receiving, and they're giving back and helping each other plan for a brighter, safer future. Volunteer opportunities are currently available for those who would like to be family mentors and tutors, so children and adults can practice English. To learn more about these rewarding opportunities, call 312-655-7096. That's 312-655-7096.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at archchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago. Ahead, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to Mission Matters Live. I am Megan Mio, Director of the Global Mission Office here in the Archdiocese of Chicago, and I am here with Deacon Don Grossnickle and Deacon Jerry Brennen of Our Lady of the Wayside Parish in Arlington Heights. You're listening to the extended interview. We just recorded our 30-minute interview for the radio, and now we wanted to share more information. 30 minutes is not enough time. We have a lot to talk about for the MAAP Foundation, which stands for Microfinance Alliance Africa Projects Foundation. This is a U.S.-based charity that seeks to improve the health and healthcare of women and children in Uganda, utilizing microfinance and working with the whole community, and especially those parishes and churches that are serving the faith-based community there in Uganda. And there is great need. I've been talking with Deacon Don and Deacon Jerry about this, and we knew that there was more information we wanted to share with you all, so hence our extended interview. And one really important piece of information, we figured, it's really important for people to hear this, is what is the situation in terms of healthcare in Uganda? and to really understand what that urgency is, the need for this work of the MAP Foundation. So I just asked Deacon Jerry if you can tell us more about the reality of health and health care for women and children in Uganda, please.
Well, as Don said earlier, the population of Uganda is about 45 million. Almost all of the people are subsistence farmers. They barely can eke out enough food for themselves to eat. In any extraordinary event like COVID-19, there were horrendous flooding in Kasese Diocese last, that washed away clinics and all kinds of things. Any extraordinary event just puts them behind. And something like getting malaria can be an extraordinary event, because if they can't afford the medicine to treat the malaria, they might die. If they don't die, they could be incapacitated or very poorly able to work for the rest of their life. So the relatively inexpensive malaria treatments that a clinic can give them through microfinance businesses takes a clinic that, as we use, and gives them sufficient source of funds, because they have keeps giving money method to be able to afford to treat indigent moms and babies.
Deacon Jerry, it's getting hard to hear you. We're kind of losing your signal. Maybe Deacon Don, could you fill us in a little bit on that same information?
Yeah, I think basically what we're explaining is that life is very difficult for the Ugandan people. It's a huge country spread out, mostly agrarian. People dig on land that maybe doesn't even belong to them for food, and try to sell some. What they can sell basically it typically does not cover things like, as Deacon Jerry was saying, some kind of an emergency. The homes that they live in, none of them have screens. And the problem with Uganda is water. Okay. They are bordered on Lake Victoria, the tremendous Africa. So water is not a problem to drink. Water is a terrible problem. However, because the mosquitoes are bred, and the rains come and wash everything away and form puddles, and the mosquitoes have their way. Yeah. And they can't seem to get a handle on eradication of the mosquitoes. So the people rarely have a bed net to sleep under. And just imagine living in a dwelling, if you've ever been camping, trying to fight off a mosquito that just doesn't go away. And but imagine a whole house full every day, every night, and not being able to do anything about it. So you lay there as a victim, and you're bitten, and before you know it, you have a fever and sick and flu-like symptoms, and then you have this problem. You have no money, so you go running around trying to find a drugstore and seeing how much you can take little pennies and see if you can get some excuse me, some pharmacy to look kindly on you, go to a clinic and help you. But the situation is dire. And the important thing that listeners, viewers should know, why are babies in particular? Well, because when mothers and children are born, as they're delivering a pregnancy, the situation is that the immune system becomes repressed, and they become extremely vulnerable. Then they can't fight off the malaria, so the malaria gets a hold in them and then takes over their liver or their brain and kidneys, and they have what's called complicated malaria. And complicated malaria will kill. So without medication. And as Deacon Jerry mentioned earlier, the beginning treatment for complicated malaria is about $25, okay, US. All right, and then the way that goes is 2 pints of blood, and other kinds of medication that would cure complicated malaria would go up to somewhere around 50. Now, where would a mother get $57 to deliver their baby in a clinic? It's unthinkable.
Yeah.
So without Catholic clinics around, mothers will not have their babies in a clinic. And if they have complications like a breech, or if they start bleeding, they will die. All right. And that's the reality of mothers and babies. That's our priority.
Yes.
So we believe that our microfinance projects are a way to address these in a realistic way, one clinic at a time.
We're protecting life here. You're talking about the most vulnerable. You're talking about the future of the Ugandan society, and especially those mothers and babies who are at that really critical time when the baby is coming, and in its early days. So thank you. Yeah, it looks like Deacon Jerry is back with us now. Hopefully the signal's a little bit stronger. I'd like to move on to ask that question about how does the MAP Foundation choose who you work with? You mentioned a number of different clinics that have been supported over the last some few years. But how does a diocese or a parish apply, and who do you work with on the ground in Uganda? Maybe Deacon Jerry can tell us.
So we have, unfortunately, a significantly larger number from various dioceses. We're basically working with dioceses in the country of Uganda. Try to sort the projects by ones that fit our financial criteria, that have that shows support not only of, let's say, the clinic, but also the parish, the Caritas, which Ugandan version of Catholic Charities in the Archdiocese.
Caritas.
Other support to show the good, strong local and in the projects that they want to do. We basically look at those criteria and look at when they'd be likely to be ready. We have money to fund them at that point.
All right, now, Deacon Jerry, we can hear you, but you're a little bit quieter. So just in case, if you could speak up a little bit more loudly, hopefully we'll be able to hear you more clearly. Okay. So there's a...
Did you hear what I was saying then?
It wouldn't hurt if you gave us a quick summary. Say again.
Okay. A quick summary is we have a large number of projects that come to us from all of the dioceses. We look at ones that we could afford to fund based on our financial criteria, and we look at how strong the local support is to see whether or not the project is likely to succeed or not.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for doing that, because actually that way, you aren't just sort of sending funding out without really knowing, is this going to be effective? Is this going to be sustainable? Is this something that will continue to make a difference in those communities? It's something that you're not just sort of giving a gift and walking away, right?
That's correct. The way we structure these forgivable loans is basically we're looking at the people on the other side as being an adult, and we are expecting, and we are good stewards of the money that is given to us to dispense. And so we're looking at being mentors of them building a project and being able to successfully complete a project.
Great. And then who are your partners on the ground? Do you have folks who are working in Uganda that are supporting an ongoing kind of presence for the MAP Foundation?
Don, do you want to speak to
Sure, I'd be glad
Junior?
to. Thank you, Jerry. Yeah, we have fortunately been connected a small group that helps us in three ways. They help us go and make site visits, looking at the complicated proposal. As Deacon Jerry mentioned, we get proposals. We probably have 15 or 20 of them, okay, by clinics that are asking for us to come to their rescue. Remember, keeping in mind, they're already operating clinics, but they are financially struggling. So they ask us to take a look at what their situation is, and they are looking for a microfinance project. So our team on the ground, we call them, basically looks at proposals when we send them to a prospective diocese, clinic, parish, and then we go through a whole complex evaluation process. Once they submit a recommendation back for further review, then after they've done the site visit, then the board will approve of the finance, and then we're ready for the second phase, which is mentoring and implementation.
Right.
And they are with them on ground to help them. And the third phase is, which is very important, we haven't mentioned this yet, is we keep our donors and sponsors, the people who made the clinic possible, the support possible, we keep them informed.
Yeah.
Because the only thing that they get from us, they don't get money back when they invest. Their prayers and their finances basically are turned over to us. We turn them over to the clinic, but what they get is reports and photos and our newsletter and our webpage, and we keep them very well informed. And so our people on the ground are working with us. And, you know, I should mention, since we're talking about Seminary Week, who leads was an individual who was studying to become a priest and decided not to. And so now he works with us in this ministry, a calling within a second calling, and he leads our team on ground.
Awesome. Okay. Former seminarian is working with you. That's great.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, that definitely gives a fuller picture, I think, of all the efforts that the MAP Foundation goes through to really make sure that the donations, the gifts that are given are put to good use. As you say, good stewards, you're good stewards, and that this is really a successful community endeavor. You're knowing before you even consider a request or an application that something is viable, and then you're continuing that relationship ongoing, which is great. Now, you mentioned during the show, Deacon Don, that you just earlier this year returned from a trip from Uganda. And it sounds like you're the only one so far from the MAP Foundation who's been able to physically go from the U.S., but and hopefully that will change in the future. But from this most recent trip then, were you visiting sites? Were you looking at possible new sites? What did you learn from this trip?
Well, we had a photojournalist with Megan. So, and we, on our YouTube channel, we have two posted videos of a 5-part series that will help the viewers know exactly what we did and chronicle. I'm seeing now on screen some of the images that were taken. This is the first video that shows the mission. Here's a little child being treated for malaria. Look at the perspiration that's coming, and look at the satisfaction of the mother. You say a picture is worth 1,000 words. My heart is always so uplifted when I see representation of our work. So yes, we visited many of the sites. We have, as I say, 11 in process. We hope to have 18 by the end of next year. So it was a mix of new prospective ones and continuing sites. We work on relationships. This particular image that's on here, this young man gave us thumbs up. Before he was treated here, he was dying, and you can see the look on the mother's face of the happiness that that we exist. So this is charity, yes, but philanthropy I think is different. As Deacon Jerry said, we're more than just passing out fish, which is perfectly fine. We are growing these communities. There are 19 dioceses in Uganda.
Yeah.
Right now, we have beautiful relationships with 5 Ugandan bishops, okay, and obviously 18 pastors and communities. So I would think maybe Jerry might wrap up here. Anything that I didn't cover that should be covered.
Well, I think you covered a lot of things very well, Don. So all I would add is that this is an opportunity for, in a sense, to be able to count how many lives.
Deacon Jerry, you're a little quiet again. Could you speak up a little louder for us?
Sure. This is an opportunity for people to be able to count how many lives they save with their donation. It's almost, when you look at the treatment costs for a early stage malaria through the treatment stage or an advanced stage of malaria being someplace between roughly $5 and $50, it's pretty easy with even a small contribution to recognize that you are actually individually saving the life of a mother and of a baby in a foreign country that's getting treated at a Catholic clinic. And I think that's a really exciting possibility.
Yeah,
Great.
An amazing gift.
Economic thing, okay? If you have that is produced by a microfinance project, okay, and then you have 11 clinics, so you multiply 11 times $500, okay, and if my arithmetic serves me correctly, you're about $6,600 a year. So take in roughly $1 a year, and an office visit is usually the equivalent. Okay, so it ranges. So if they need treatment, we are now saying, as Deacon Jerry is saying, the economics of this thing is it's of course one person at a time, but if my numbers are correct, our forecast is for 11 clinics, we should be able to serve 6,000 mothers of babies. That's with a $10 support system. Imagine then, and this is 6,000 or more, could be 6,000 to 10,000 mothers and babies that would be turned away from a clinic and turned to die or to go back home and become sick with no place else to turn. Yeah. So I think you can see God is blessing us with an impact that makes a big difference, and we're growing across Uganda with the help of every small donation that someone who might be listening might bless us with a donation. Every bit helps.
Yeah, I'd like to just add my reflection that this is truly an example of missionary work, right? Because a missionary's goal is to come into a community from the outside, come to know people, listen, speak with the leaders, and say what are their needs. How can we bring the presence of Christ to life here in this community? God is here, but we want to encourage people's awareness and engagement in God's presence. And you recognize this great need here. And a missionary says, I want to kind of get things started, and then I'm going to move on to the next community, like St. Paul. And so it looks like this is what you're doing with each parish you work with each clinic. Kind of get things moving. You give them good startup monies, you give them good training, and the community supports itself and changes lives, saves lives. And this is really, you mentioned the look on the mother's face when their child receives life-saving treatment. This is God smiling. This is a moment of the presence of Christ being recognized. Any mother, any parent, this is their greatest wish, to have their child be healthy and safe and to grow and to have a wonderful quality of life. So I think every listener can understand that as a great, great need, given the realities in Uganda. So I would just like to ask, as kind of our final question, your own feelings. What gives you the greatest satisfaction in the work that you do? How have you really? What keeps you going in doing this work? I'd like to ask Deacon Jerry first, please, if you would give us your thoughts.
Well, to me, one of the most wonderful aspects about this is that when we give $5,000 to a clinic to buy a small dairy herd or a flock of chickens or vegetable garden, whatever is used for, is that becomes a sustainable project. So they don't just have enough money to treat women and babies in 1 year, but as long as the agribusiness they have continues for a long period, hopefully, they can treat people year after year after year. So we're kind of like a catalyst that really helps to get a clinic going and sustaining, rather than being on the edge of bankruptcy, as St. Jude was when Don first got involved.
Yeah, well, it's a wonderful image. Thank you. And Deacon Don.
Well, when I hear hymns at Mass, like awake from your slumber, arise from your sleep, a new day is dawning for all those who weep. Obviously, I see those who weep, and it's a heart-rending picture. And there's little something I can do, and that's how it started. There's a little something that all of us can do. That's the reason God sent us into the world, is to reflect His goodness. And so it's an opportunity. So what do I feel? I feel a song in my heart all the time, that Deacon Jerry is working with us. Megan, you're working with us, all the technicians, the Cardinal, other deacons doing missionary work. It's in one image, I will say to you that what we are doing is supporting those who are healing. We see every day these clinics are going to operate, whether we're there or not. Okay. And if we can help them, they have a terrible job. They push people away and say, I'm sorry, we're out of medicine. We can't help you. Okay. And that is a disaster for me. We deacons were called, to look out for God's the least. Okay. And I think finally, after 34 years of being the deacon, I think I've loved all of it, all the parish work. But this work is a very, very satisfying. I am grateful for all of it, but it's unusual. I get to see, and that's going on. And actually the welcome, Megan, that we get by the people in the clinics that embrace me. We walk in as strangers and we leave as comrades, as people working together with God. So it's extremely rewarding. It's a great volunteer job. I love it, and I encourage everybody to join us in any way that they can.
Yeah. It occurred to me while you were both speaking, you're truly living out that vocation to the diaconate. One of the key elements of being a deacon is outreach, is that missionary attitude, going forth, looking outward to the whole community and the greater universal world community, which you have certainly lived up to. But being a missionary is for all vocations. It's for lay people, it's for priests, it's for deacons, it's for religious men and women. So anybody can get involved. So I'm going to remind our viewers, our listeners, of that website so that you can learn more and also see how you might be able to support. That website is maapfoundation.org. And we've been seeing little clips from it and those videos on YouTube too, images of those communities, those mothers and babies that have been affected by the work of the MAP Foundation. Learn a little bit more. I think that's the first step. Prayer is the number one thing, prayer. But who are you praying for? You got to learn first. So I recommend our viewers to take a look, learn a little bit more, and then turn to prayer. and see if you may be able to get involved. So thank you very much for joining us, Deacon Don and Deacon Jerry. The MAP Foundation is a great example of how compassion for our sisters and brothers a world away can inspire creative and sustainable ideas that benefit the whole community. I pray that your work will continue to grow and expand. Thank you very much for joining us today, too. It's great.
Thank you, Megan.
Yeah.
God
Thank
bless.
you, Megan.
Thanks. All right. Well, we'll see you next time, folks. Remember, always be on mission.